As physical competition for resources has decreased, sex has become increasingly social, as it is for the bonobos. Men and women hook up to satisfy their primal drive to reproduce. To the chagrin of masculinity's reimaginers, women still respond sexually to the kind of alpha traits and behaviors in men that would have made them good hunters and fighters. Displaying strength, courage, and mastery signals genetic superiority and high status to women, even women who have no plans to reproduce. Men seek out women who appear to be hardy and fertile, and women trick men's monkey brains with lipstick, liposuction, and breast implants. Sex today is increasingly disconnected from mating, and for many, it has become a matter of masturbating with someone else's body. In many cases, what that body offers is a disappointment compared to the risk-free sex that men can have virtually and vicariously through immediately available high-quality pornography. In 2003, feminist Naomi Wolf and writer David Amsden wrote that the simulated sexual experience was turning many men off to sex with real women, who felt that they had to compete with pornography for the attention of men. 2003. Wasn't that back when people actually still paid for porn? And a gigabyte still sounded like a big file? Today, young men can download high-definition pornography in moments and watch it on the same dazzling big-screen television that they bought to watch the Super Bowl. New York Magazine followed up in 2011 with a story titled, "He's Just Not That Into Anyone," wherein the author reported faking an orgasm during real sex, but having no problems climaxing when watching porn. Some of the men he interviewed for the story told him that they were experiencing erectile dysfunction during real sex, and others told him that they had to replay scenes from porn to get off while fucking their wives. Singer John Mayer confessed to Playboy magazine that there had probably been days where he had seen 300 vaginas before getting out of bed. Our world isn't offering men more paths to virile fulfillment or vital experience. What the modern world offers average men is 1,001 ways to safely spank our monkey brains into oblivion. Is it any wonder that some men ask themselves, in lucid moments between masturbating to various forms of vicarious sex and violence, what Betty Friedan wrote that educated housewives were asking themselves in the 50s? Is this all? We were born into a piece of plenty, a pleasure economy, a bonobo masturbation society. The future that our elite handlers have in store for us advertises more of the same. More detached pleasure, less risk, freedom from want, more masturbation. Reimaginers of masculinity offer us metaphorical battles to fight, but in the real world, the most meaningful battles will be fought between elite bureaucrats and experts and wealthy managers who believe they know what is best, while the rest of us shuffle off to boring, risk-free jobs to do idiot work and stare at the clock, waiting to go home and furiously indulge ourselves in whatever form of vicarious or virtual primitive experience gets us off. Cosmopolitan journalists from elite schools like Betty Friedan filled women's imaginations with fantasies of exciting big city careers that only a few could ever hope to attain. For every woman living that fantasy today, there are a bunch of women scanning merchandise through a checkout line at some big box retail store, or doing repetitive data entry in some gray office. In the East, women are answering our phone calls or performing monotonous assembly line tasks in factories. This is called progress. Many of those women would probably rather be spending more time actively engaged in the lives of their children, but they no longer have the choice to stay home. The cost of civilization is a progressive trade-off of vital existence. It's a trade-off of the real for the artificial, for the convincing con, made for the promise of security and a full belly. It has always been so. The question is, how much trade is too much? In the future that globalists and feminists have imagined for themselves, only a few people will actually do anything worth doing. A few people will be scientists, charged with uncovering the mysteries of the universe. A few people will be engineers who dream and design and solve problems. A few people will inhabit a privileged managerial class of financiers and bureaucrats, and they will make all of the decisions that matter for everyone else. They will captain companies and departments and build their great leviathans out of legal papers and fake smiles. There will also be, as there is now, a glamorous creative class, charged with devising our sedentary entertainments. There will be gladiators and chariot races. There will be drama and theater people, and there will be global village gossip. Still, everyone can't be a chief, and most of us will still be Indians. Products need hordes of consumers and salespeople and customer service representatives and clerks and stock boys and loss prevention associates and midnight janitors. Anyone on the left-hand side of the bell curve. Anyone who makes the wrong choices at the wrong time. Anyone who doesn't jump through the hoops or play the game. Anyone who hasn't been properly socialized. And anyone who turns down the wrong options for the right reasons will end up doing those drone jobs. As Matthew B. Crawford observed in his book, Shop Class as Soulcraft, even so-called white-collar knowledge work is, quote, subject to routinization and degradation, proceeding by the same logic that hit manufacturing 100 years ago. The cognitive elements of the job are appropriated from professionals, instantiated into a system or process, and then handed back to a new class of workers, clerks, who replace the professionals, end quote. Being able to read and write at a college level doesn't mean the job you do will require much more thinking or consequential problem solving than you would have to do as a shift manager at McDonald's. It will only save you from the greasy forehead. Only a couple hundred years ago, many of these men, now destined for clerkdom, would have learned a trade from their fathers and mastered it, whether it was farming or some kind of engaging work that they could be proud of. They would have been valued members of a smaller community of people who cared whether they lived or died. Some would have spent their lives with gangs of men on ships, but most would have been bound to provide for and protect their families, their own small clans. This was a workable compromise between gang life and family life. A few generations ago, these men would have had meaningful responsibilities, and their actions would have had the potential to do more harm than merely hurting someone's feelings or causing them to be inconvenienced. They would have had pressing reasons to try to be good at being men, but also to be good men. Not so long ago, these men would have had dignity and honor. In the future that globalists and feminists have imagined, for most of us, there will only be more clerkdom and masturbation. There will only be more apologizing, more submission, more asking for permission to be men. There will only be more examinations, more certifications, mandatory prerequisites, screening processes, background checks, personality tests, and politicized diagnoses. There will only be more medication. There will be more presenting the secretary with a cup of your own warm urine. There will be mandatory morning stretches and video safety presentations and sign-off sheets for your file. There will be more helmets and goggles and harnesses and bright orange vests with reflective tape. There can only be more counseling and sensitivity training. There will be more administrative hoops to jump through to start your own business and keep it running. There will be more mandatory insurance policies. There will definitely be more taxes. There will probably be more Byzantine sexual harassment laws and corporate policies and more ways for women and protected identity groups to accuse you of misconduct. There will be more micromanaged living, pettier regulations, heavier fines, and harsher penalties. There will be more ways to run afoul of the law, and more ways for society to maintain its pleasant illusions by sweeping you under the rug. In 2009, there were almost 5 times more men either on parole or serving prison terms in the United States than were actively serving in all of the armed forces. If you're a good boy and you follow the rules, if you learn how to speak passively and inoffensively, if you can convince some other poor, sleepwalking sap that you are possessed with an almost unhealthy desire to provide outstanding customer service or increase operational efficiency through the improvement of internal processes and effective organizational communication, if you can say stupid shit like that without laughing, if your record checks out and your pee smells right, you can get yourself a job. Maybe you can be the guy who administers the test or authorizes the insurance policy. Maybe you can be the guy who helps make some soulless global corporation a little more money. Maybe you can get a pat on the head for coming up with the bright idea to put a bunch of other guys out of work and outsource their boring jobs to guys in some other place who are willing to work longer hours for less money. Whatever you do, no matter what people say, no matter how many team-building activities you attend or how many birthday cards you get from someone's secretary, you will know that you are a completely replaceable unit of labor in the big scheme of things. No sprawling bureaucracy or global corporation can ever love you. They have public relations budgets and human resources departments to protect their interests and their bottom line. There is no us. A legal entity can't care if you live or die, or if you're happy. If you're a good boy, if you're well-groomed and have a job and you learn to say the right things, maybe you can convince a nice girl to let you give her a baby and help her pay for it. If that's not your thing, you can spend your money getting drunk or busy yourself trying to hump whatever piece of ass strikes your fancy. Sex, after all, is social in the Bonobo Masturbation Society. You'll have the hard-won right to rub yourself against whatever makes you feel good, as long as you follow the rules. If you're a good boy, you can curl up in the womb of your safe little Soviet Nouveau block apartment with your comfy stuff and enjoy your measured indulgences, your gourmet food, your microbrew. You can busy yourself trying to master the art of erasing your own carbon footprint. Or you can do your part by biking to work, weaving recklessly through a barrage of trucks and cars that could crush you for the sheer thrill of it. Maybe you'll take a class and get your permit, and after another clerk confirms that you are competent enough to be licensed and properly insured, you'll be able to do something really crazy, like ride a motorcycle. Maybe you'll pay someone to let you play a game, or run a race, or put on a safety harness and climb fake rocks. If not, you can always watch someone else do it on TV. Maybe you'll get yourself worked up about some petty inequity or injustice and participate in some non-violent resistance. Maybe you'll convince yourself that you are making a difference by standing in the same place with other people and shouting angrily at people who don't care. If you prefer, you can get online and vent your confused, impotent, vainglorious rage by playing the anonymous tough guy on some blog or forum. Or you can just say fuck it, and spend all of your money on video games that give you the vicarious thrill of slaughtering hordes of aggressive others. You can obsess over your fantasy football team. And there are always hobbies. You can find yourself something harmless and inoffensive to pass the time. Perhaps gardening. You can start a band or tinker with cars. Become a movie buff. You can paint little figurines of warriors. You can even get dressed up in costumes and do live action role-playing. Whatever you do, just find some way to busy yourself. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. All of them are fun. What is fun if not masturbating your primal brain a little? I like having fun. There's no harm in a little fun, which is why it's called fun and not something deadly serious like survival or war. If that is all, if all your life is about is chasing fun, is that enough? Is this level of civilization, is all of this peace and plenty worth the cost? How long will men be satisfied to replay and reinvent the conflict dramas of the past through books and movies and games without the hope of experiencing any meaningful conflict in their own lives? When will we grow tired of hearing the stories of great men long dead? How long will men tolerate this state of relative dishonor, knowing that their ancestors were stronger men, harder men, more courageous men, and knowing that this heritage of strength survives in them, but that their own potential for manly virtue, for glory, for honor, will be wasted? We know what the way of men has been. Is the way of the bonobo the only way that is left?